It was always late October when it happened, a Tuesday, cold but never raining. The leaves barely moved, as if the wind had been warned to stay away. Halloway Bridge didn't creak, didn't groan, didn't betray the weight of the person standing on it, because the bridge always knew. When it happened, it was silent. That was the part that unnerved people the most. Not the fall, not even the smile, but the fact that they never screamed. The first time was in 1963. The most recent was in 2003. And according to every brittle archive, local interview, and red-stringed timeline on Marianne Ryland's wall, the next one would be this year. She didn't call herself a journalist anymore. That word had become too soft around the edges. Clickbait headlines, stock photos, the quiet decay of truth. But this was real. She could feel it. Something in her lungs had started to tighten since September. Like her body already knew what was coming. Marianne had grown up 20 minutes from Grayfield, a town with more stories than stop signs. Her mother used to cover the police beat. Before the newspaper folded, her grandfather used to whisper about the bridge like it was a living thing. "It doesn't take just anyone," he'd said once after his third glass of rye. "It waits, it watches. And when it finds the right one, they smile." She hadn't believed him then, but she'd seen the photos. 7 people, every 20 years. Same date, same hour, same angle in every image. There wasn't always a witness, but there was always a picture. And in every single one, they looked peaceful. Happy, even. Like they'd seen something beautiful just beyond the horizon. Then they jumped. The town tried to ignore it. Most people chalked it up to coincidence or trauma or cursed nonsense. The bridge was closed for repairs in the 80s. They built a new one 3 miles north, hoping people would forget. But the old one still stood, crumbling at the edges, wrapped in rusted chains and no trespassing signs. And somehow, even when they sealed the ends with concrete barriers, someone always found a way up. Marianne parked 2 streets away. She didn't want the mayor seeing her snooping around. Not after the last time she showed up asking questions. About the Halloway smile, as the teenagers called it. That phrase made her skin crawl like they'd turned something unspeakable into a meme, a TikTok filter. A dare. She ducked under the barrier with a flashlight, her breath already showing. In the air. October 18th, a Tuesday. 5 days to go. The bridge moaned softly under her boots. The police reports were always the same. Unattended death. No sign of struggle. No witnesses. Fall ruled as suicide. No toxicology abnormalities. But what they didn't say haunted her more. No phones, no wallets, no notes. Just a coat left neatly folded on the railing and that serene expression on their faces. She stopped halfway across. That's where they always stewed, exactly 46 paces from the western end. She'd measured it 4 times. There was a small scrape in the metal, like someone had left a mark and no one ever painted over it. Marianne took out her recorder. This is Ryland. Night surveillance pass. Halloway Bridge. 5 days out, no activity yet. She paused, then. Quietly, but it doesn't feel empty. The air was too still. The trees didn't move. Her own voice sounded distant in her ears, like she was hearing it through a thick pane of glass. She took a photo and turned back. That night, she reviewed the footage frame by frame. Her camera auto-captured every 10 seconds. She scanned the images, fast-forwarding through stillness and cold steel. But one frame stopped her. In the third photo, there was a faint outline behind her. Not close. Far back, near the woods. A smudge, human height. Not there before. Not in the next shot. Just that single frame. But enough, she zoomed in. The pixels broke apart. No face. No definition. Just posture. The way it leaned slightly forward, as if listening. She saved it under a new folder. She didn't name it. By Thursday, she had tracked down one living connection to the 1983 case, Elizabeth Morrow, sister of Daniel Morrow, age 24, who had jumped while home from grad school. She'd never spoken to press. But Marianne had called 3 times, and finally, the woman answered. They met in a cafe with fogged windows and weak coffee. He wasn't depressed, Elizabeth said immediately, as if tearing down the wall before. It was built, he was smart, warm. Not the kind too, you know? Did he leave anything behind? Elizabeth shook her head. Just his coat. He didn't even take his keys. I found his car running in the parking lot. Music still playing. Do you remember what song? She looked down at her hands. Moon River. From Breakfast at Tiffany's. He used to hum it when he cooked. Marianne wrote that down. Did he talk about the bridge? No, Elizabeth said. But he changed the week before. I thought maybe he was tired, but it was more than that. He started looking past me, like something was calling him. She reached into her purse and slid a folded envelope across the table. Inside was an old Polaroid. Daniel, mid-20s, thin, smiling, standing at the edge of the bridge. Not the exact photo used in the report. A different angle, but the smile was the same, serene, grateful. Not the smile of a man about to jump, but someone who had finally found a missing piece. Marianne looked closer. There, in the left third of the frame, lured by light, was a sliver of a silhouette near the trees. Same place. Same posture. She didn't say anything. She just folded the photo and slid it back. That night, her dreams changed. She was on the bridge, alone at first. But then someone was beside her. She didn't turn to look, just stood there, feeling the gravity of the moment pull at her ribs. And when she spoke, it wasn't her voice. It said, "You're early." She woke up gasping, her recorder still on her desk. Had a new file. She hadn't pressed record. The file was 17 seconds long. No timestamp, just static. And at the very end, the same voice from her dream whispered, "Soon." She didn't tell anyone, not her editor, not her friend Gabe, who used to help her cut audio. Not even the local archivist who had been feeding her old maps of the town. She needed to go deeper. Alone the next day, she went back to the municipal archives and asked for blueprints of the original Halloway Bridge. The clerk was reluctant. "You know we sealed those records, right?" "Off the books," she said. "I'll sign whatever you want." The plans were yellowed and delicate, but still legible. She ran her fingers over the elevation lines. Nothing. Strange until she noticed a second layer beneath the main deck. "What is this?" she asked. The clerk squinted. Old inspection platform. No longer accessible. It used to run under the bridge for maintenance. Is it still there? Probably rusted to hell. Why? But she was already out the door. That evening she returned with climbing gear and gloves. The river below roared louder than she remembered. She clipped a harness to one of the posts and began her descent. The steel groaned beneath her weight. Every sound echoed. 15 feet down, her boots touched the old maintenance platform. Rotting boards. Rusted beams. The smell of mildew and old iron. She scanned with her flashlight. There near the center was a bundle of something wrapped in cloth. She moved closer. Knelt. A coat. Men's folded. Beside it. A tape recorder, old, dust-covered. She picked it up, heart pounding. Pressed rewind. Then play. At first, nothing. Then a soft, slow voice. "If you're hearing this, it means you heard it too." Pause. "It doesn't want us to talk, but it can't stop us from recording." Static. I didn't want to smile. I tried not to. But when I looked, it smiled first. Click. The tape stopped. Marianne stood on the edge of the platform, watching the reflection of the bridge shimmer in the river. For a moment, she thought she saw a figure standing on the surface of the water, still, waiting. She didn't speak, didn't scream, just stared back, and somewhere deep in the metal of the bridge, she thought she heard it breathing. She didn't remember driving home. The road from Halloway blurred into itself, headlights dissolving into fog. The tape recorder clutched in her passenger seat like something alive. Marianne parked outside her apartment and just sat there, hands trembling against the steering wheel. The coat, the one she'd found on the underside of the bridge, still smelled faintly of cedar and dust, old, preserved, not ruined by weather. Like it had waited, she didn't bring it inside. Instead, she set the tape recorder on her desk and hit play again, hoping maybe she'd imagined it, that the voice was just interference or some old radio signal. But it wasn't. It was clear, human. If you're hearing this, means you heard it too. She scrubbed backward, replayed the sentence. Every breath, every pause was deliberate, like a confession, like someone speaking just over her shoulder. She had no name, no date, no idea who had left it. But there was one line she couldn't shake. I didn't want to smile. I tried not to. But when I looked, it smiled first. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't folklore. Something was on that bridge. Something that didn't just take lives, it waited for them, drew them in. And every 20 years, it made someone feel like jumping. Wasn't death, but arrival. She opened her notebook, scribbled the date again, October 18th, Tuesday, 11:04 p.m., 3 nights away. That gave her time to try something no one had ever done: talk to someone who almost jumped. There had to be one, right? Someone who felt the pull but didn't give in. Someone who stood on that bridge, heard the whisper, and turned back. And if not, then she'd be the first. The next morning, she called Gabe. He answered on the second ring. You sound like hell. Thanks, I need a favor. That's how every good mystery starts. Can you scrub through every suicide case near Halloway Bridge that didn't end in a confirmed death? Someone who jumped but survived, or someone reported missing and found. Gabe was silent. You okay? Just run it. Keyword anomaly. I'll buy you dinner. He sighed. Fine, but if I start seeing shadows behind me, you're paying for therapy too. Marianne hung up and pulled out the photo Elizabeth Morrow had shown her. Daniel's smile. It's the same impossible calmness. The silhouette in the trees. She opened her laptop, ran the image through her facial recognition tool, not to identify Daniel, but to cross-reference similar expressions in unrelated cases. If this smile wasn't just an emotional response, if it was learned, triggered, maybe it had a pattern. 15 minutes passed. 42 results. She eliminated the obvious. Tourist photos, graduation smiles, wedding shots. But two stood out. One was a missing hiker from 1983 in Colorado. Last seen standing near a canyon drop. Her face, caught in a photo from another group, wore that same eerie serenity. The other was a security still of a man walking into the ocean fully clothed in 2003, his face turned slightly toward the beach camera, smiling, not out of joy, but as if he'd recognized something. She bookmarked both. Whatever this was, it wasn't local, and it wasn't done. By evening, Gabe called back. Got something, he said, voice low. Not in the police records. This one came through ER logs. 2003. Man found unconscious under the west side of Halloway Bridge. Broken arm, head trauma, said he slipped. But here's the thing, his clothes matched the coat left behind in the 2003 incident, and his hospital name didn't match any missing persons report. Marianne sat upright. Where is he now? Off the grid. No social, no license, no address. But there's a last known contact. A rehab center in Redwater. She didn't wait. Packed her bag, threw on a coat, and drove. Redwater was 2 hours away, quiet and remote, tucked behind a tree line that swallowed the sky. The rehab center looked like it hadn't been touched since the 80s paint curling from the doorframe. Gravel path overgrown. She walked up to the nurse's station and leaned in. I'm looking for someone. Name might be false. Came in around 2003. Head injury. May be referred to as John Doe. The nurse squinted. You press. No. Just looking for answers. The woman studied her, then turned to the back wall. Room 12. If he's awake, you'll get 5 minutes. He doesn't like questions. Room 12 was dim. The man inside looked younger than she expected. 40, maybe. But time had done something strange to his eyes. They didn't seem to look at anything directly. Just beside. Hi, Marianne said, keeping her voice soft. I'm not here to hurt you. I think you may have survived something. The bridge. Halloway. The man blinked once. Then again, you. Ever smile without meaning to? He asked. She stopped. Yes. That's how it started. He turned his head slightly toward her. I was walking home. Wasn't thinking of jumping. Didn't want to die. Just needed air. Then I stopped. Right there on the bridge. And it smiled at me. What did? She asked. He didn't answer. Just said it was behind my reflection. Goosebumps crawled up her arms. I leaned forward. It leaned too. But it wasn't copying. It was watching. Smiling like it recognized me. He paused. I didn't jump, he whispered. I stepped. Like I was already dreaming. It caught me halfway down. Then let me go. Marianne barely breathed. Why? He finally looked at her directly this time. Because it was curious. She left the center without saying goodbye. That night, her dreams came again. She was back on the bridge, but this time, she wasn't alone. Someone was walking behind Herslow, bare feet on cold metal. She couldn't turn, couldn't speak. Just stood still while the presence came closer. Then a voice not hearsed. You're almost ready. She woke up with blood in her nose and a deep ache behind her eyes. There was a new file on her recorder. 11 seconds. This time, no voice, just humming. Moon River. October 18th. The day had come. Marianne didn't go to work. Didn't answer her phone. She dressed in layers, packed her recorder, camera, and Daniel's photo. She left her apartment clean. Made her bed. Cleared her browser history. She wasn't going to jump. She just needed to see. The sky was overcast when she arrived. 10:37 p.m. The wind had picked up, but only near the bridge. Trees elsewhere stood still, as if the weather had rules here. She crossed the barrier slowly, counting her steps, 40-6, right where the scrape was. She stood there, camera around her. Neck recorder in her pocket, coat zipped up. The silence was enormous. Even the river seemed to hush itself. She raised her camera, took one photo, then another, then again, then stopped. Behind her, just out of the frame, something moved. Not loud, not sudden. Just a presence, like gravity shifting. She turned, nothing. She took out her recorder. Clicked it on. This is Ryland. October 18th, standing at marker. 46. Wind active. No visible persons. No interference. She paused. Except. She looked into the water. It wasn't her reflection. It smiled first, and it wasn't alone. A second face drifted just behind hers in the reflection-o body. Umber. Movement, just presence. Like a second self, familiar, expectant. The same smile as Daniel. The same smile as the hiker. The ocean man. The man in the rehab center. It wasn't imitating, it was remembering. Marianne felt her lips twitch. Not a decision, not emotion. Just a slow pull upward. She forced herself back, snapped. Another photo, the reflection blinked. She turned and ran. She didn't stop until she reached her car, slammed the door, locked it, then checked the camera. 3 photos. The first, the bridge. Empty. The second, her silhouette. The third, her face smiling. But taken from above, there was no one else on that bridge. She didn't remember raising the camera. She didn't press the shutter, but someone had. She drove to Gabe's place, burst through the door, and shoved the camera at him. "Download them," she said. "No edits, just raw files. Look at the metadata." He frowned, but did as she asked. A minute later, he looked up pale. "Marianne." The third photo. It's time-stamped 11:04 p.m. October 18th, she nodded slowly. "That's the time they always jump." He stared at the image again. Zoomed in, froze, then said, barely audible, "There's a second shadow, right next to you. You didn't see it?" "No," she whispered. But it smiled first. The photograph wouldn't let her go. It sat on her desk, printed in matte black and white, pinned to the wall under a reading lamp. Marianne had stared at it for hours, not just at her own face, tilted slightly upward, smiling like someone greeting an old friend, but at the shadow behind her. It had no detail, no eyes, no limbs. Just implied shape, curved inward like it was leaning close to whisper. She'd tried analyzing the image data. No Photoshop, no layering. The angle confirmed it was taken from slightly above and behind. But her camera had been strapped around her neck the whole time. No one else had touched it. She hadn't pressed the shutter. The metadata showed it had been taken by user. And then the line under its "where her name should be" was blank. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat in the dark recorder on the table, camera beside her, and whispered into the stillness, "Why me?" No reply, but outside her window, a street lamp flickered, once, then twice. Then it went dark. She closed the blinds and didn't ask again. By morning, she had made a decision. Not to jump, not to run, but to follow the only thread left, the first smile. The one that started it all. If there was a pattern to this, someone must have been the origin. The one who smiled first, before the bridge learned to mimic it. She needed to find them. Her theory was simple, terrifying, and possibly delusional. Whatever this was, this present set wasn't evil. But it was ancient, observant, and deeply curious. It didn't kill people. It watched them until they chose, and it learned from the first one, so who had taught it? She called the town archives again, asked for death records from 1943-20. Years before the first officially recorded incident in 1963, the clerk on duty sounded exhausted. "That's pre-digital. If it's not in the paper log, we don't have it. Then I'll come get it." She drove an hour through back roads to reach the archive basement, where cardboard boxes were stacked in year-labeled rows. She wore gloves, mask, the whole thing, and she searched. She almost missed it. A yellowed ledger, water-damaged and stained, tucked behind a tax record binder, inside an obituary. October 19th, 1943. Name, Sarah Ellen. Price, age, 29. Occupation, librarian. Cause of death, drowning notes. Witnesses reported she was smiling. Marianne froze. She flipped the page. Nothing else about Sarah Ellen Price. No photo. No news articles. No surviving family. Just one marginal note. No belongings recovered. She dug deeper. At the local library, she found a census log. Sarah Ellen had lived in town for 6 years. Worked as a librarian at the now closed Grayfield. Women's college, unmarried, no children. no next of kin. But the college archives housed in the same building that had been shuttered since the 1970s were still intact. She got the keys from the town clerk by pretending to be part of a university project. No one questioned her. Inside the dusty, vine-covered library, she found Sarah Ellen's employee locker. It was locked, rusted shut. She pried it open with a tire iron. Inside, a single photograph, Sarah standing on Halloway Bridge, wearing a wool coat, hands on the railing, smiling, not just any smile. The same one, serene, resigned, as if the world behind her had already faded. As if the bridge had asked a question and she had just said yes. On the back of the photo, written in pencil, "It finally heard me." Mary Ann nearly dropped it. It didn't start with the bridge. It started with her. She took the photo home, scanned it, and laid it beside the others. 7 victims over 60 years. 1 survivor, all with the same smile. But Sarah's was the origin, the teaching moment, the first offering, and whatever was under that water. Inside that metal, or stitched into the bones of the bridge, had learned from her. She opened her recorder. This is Mary Ann Ryland. As of October 19th, I believe. I've located the origin of the Halloway phenomenon. A woman named Sarah Ellen Price died in 1943. Smile consistent with all later victims. I don't think she was chosen. I think she chose it and it remembered. She paused, then added, "But now, it's remembering me." That night, it came closer. She didn't dream this time. She woke at 3:11 a.m. to the sound of humming. Moon River, coming from her living room. She got up slowly, every inch of her skin prickling. The humming stopped when she crossed the doorway. Her recorder was on, red light blinking. She picked it up. The new file was 10 seconds long. Just the sound of footsteps metal underfoot, then a soft voice. "Female this time, you smiled. Mary Ann." She dropped the recorder, not out of fear, but because it was right. She had smiled. That night on the bridge, when she saw the reflection blink, her lips had curved without her consent. Not because she wanted to, because something inside her had been relieved, like it had been waiting for recognition. She went to the mirror, stared at her own face, waited, and sure enough, she smiled. It wasn't her expression. Not really. It was hers. Sarah's copied, preserved, replayed, and now shared. The next day, Gabe called her 3 times. She didn't answer. He came by her apartment. No response, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the room was clean. The photo wall had been taken down. The recorder sat on the table, one new file added. He played it. Her voice steady. "This is Mary Ann. If you're hearing this, I've gone to meet it. Not out of despair, but out of wonder. If I don't come back, tell them it doesn't kill. It remembers. It waits for someone who understands. I think I do now." Static, then one last line, whispered but clear. "It's beautiful." The town called it another suicide. The 7th, October 20th, 2023. But Gabe noticed the pattern had changed. She hadn't jumped on the 18th. She'd waited, which meant something had shifted. The cycle had moved. The presence had learned again. 1 week later, Gabe received a package with no return address. Inside, a flash drive, a photo, and a note. The photo showed Mary Ann at the bridge, not on it, under it, standing on the rusted maintenance platform, smiling up toward the water's reflection. The note was only 4 words. It smiled first again. And every night since, at exactly 11:04 p.m., the river camera near Halloway glitches. Just for a second. Then it plays back 7 frames. Feet on metal, a woman's coat, and a smile that is no longer just Sarah's, but everyone's single quotes, watching, learning, waiting.